All right. Let's see. Well, let's do this instead of doing Unreal stuff and um, yeah. Let's kind of start to get into a little bit more hardcore Maya stuff, so you guys can really kind of start to take your rigging to the next level, which I know we're all excited about. Um, all right. Let's go grab a mesh off of Free 3D. So everybody open up a browser. We'll get something cool. Let's go for a weapon. Instead of going into organics right away, we'll just kind of start with some hard surface stuff. If you guys scan through there, I'm open to options for you guys to preferably something with some moving parts. I feel like we always end up doing stuff like this over the term. These like weird multi-legged spider robots with like guns on them. We always end up doing something like that. It's a little much for right now, but we just need kind of something simple with some moving parts. If anybody has any ideas, feel free to throw them out.
Shotgun?
There's a Civil War cannon and a naval cannon.
Where's that one at?
Page
I could do a
4
cannon.
on the very left side.
Not a whole lot.
4 down. Oh yeah, there you go. Civil War is the third one. Naval's the fifth.
I wonder if they have like a Gatling gun kind of thing.
They have the Thundercat sword.
I think we actually did that one time. Don't even have chain gun. Gosh. The cannon wasn't a terrible idea.
There's
Just
Halo 4
kind of
rifle.
boring.
I finally got one gun.
Where's it at? What's the name of it?
If you look up weapons, it's on the 4th page, second row.
This guy?
Yep.
Found a pretty cool spider bot.
Oh man, yeah. It's gonna be a little much. I guess that cannon wouldn't be, or this thing wouldn't be terrible. Okay. It's in Cinema 4D though. That's a problem. We have no import capability for that because we don't have Cinema 4D. Alright, Paul. Guess we're going with a cannon here.
Oh, wait, there's
Where's it at?
Just search minigun. It's like the first, the first one. There's a second one that pops up too.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's do this cannon here. Everybody see this? It's an OBJ. It's got some textures. And I got some ideas of some stuff we can do with that. It should be pretty simple. I kind of want to get you guys like versed in some base concepts. And so instead of pushing you too hard on something crazy, let's ease y'all into it, and then we'll see where we get everybody. Everybody's sitting next to someone. Is everybody sitting next to a someone? She's not. Okay. You guys are probably gonna have questions along the way. I just want to make sure that you know that there's someone sitting next to you and that they can probably answer your questions. You guys seem to be pretty good over here with answering questions. Obi, when you have a question, ask either of them, and vice versa, right? Okay. All right, so let's download this cannon, import it into Maya, and and then hopefully the textures work. Although I showed you guys last time how to fix textures. And there are no textures. Nice. Oh well. So make sure to extract the file. It's actually a pretty nice model. Okay. It's not too crazy high poly. So you're gonna download that file, and it should come in as a zip file that says 40ux blah 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 wcwcan. It's got a little zipper on it. You're just gonna right click on that and go extract all. Right click extract all, and then when you extract it, it creates a new folder. Inside that folder is an OBJ file. That is what you import into Maya. You should get something like this. Very good. Anybody not with me? We waiting on anybody? All right. So we've been in Maya before. Remember, you hold the Alt key to move around and use all three of your mouse buttons, including the mouse wheel, which zooms in and out. One handy trick, just click on any object that's in the scene and tap F on your keyboard. It's going to zoom to that object, and then if you hold Alt and left click, it'll rotate around that object, so it centers the camera to that object. It's pretty handy. Another thing is, when I select any object on here, it turns green. Okay, that is what we call when I'm in object mode in Maya. There's two modes. There's object mode and component mode. Objects are like whole objects like this. Components are parts of this object that make up that object. So if you click an object and then you right click and hold, you see a menu that comes up like this. Again, right click and hold on any object and the menu will come up like this, and you see edges, vertices, faces, and then you'll also see object mode. If you switch to, say, vertices, it switches to vertices, and you can grab those vertices, and then using the move controls, rotate and scale controls on the left, you can move, rotate, and scale those vertices. You can also right click and hold and select edges, and you can right click and hold and select faces. Okay, so you can like really grab any part of this thing that you want. Yeah. Alright, so I have no idea like what kind of scale this is at, but it looks pretty good. I mean, it's probably kind of small, but I'm not going to sweat it. But normally what I would do is I would like jump into like Google, jump on Wikipedia, and just look for like kind of the size, like get like a kind of a general size, or I'd throw a character in there that I know is scaled to, I don't know, 5 to 6 feet or something, and then I would kind of scale it to that. Let's see what's going on here. So the first thing I do when I pull in objects from online is open the hypergraph hierarchy. So go ahead and go to Windows, General Editors, Hypergraph Hierarchy. Windows, General Editors, Hypergraph Hierarchy. And in this view, again, we're just going to look at all the objects that are actually in the scene. And there's a bunch in there. And one of the things I like to do is just go ahead and drag a box over the cannon in the scene and select all the objects, and then look in the hypergraph hierarchy and see if there's anything that's not selected. What that would mean, which is not the case here, is that there are other things in the scene besides the cannon parts. So if they had like just some stray objects or whatever that were important to us, I would just like discard those or delete those, right? But in this case, it's just a bunch of objects, and yeah, it's just a bunch of objects basically, which is pretty cool. We're going to be using that hypergraph hierarchy pretty frequently, so I would just kind of, instead of Xing that out, just go ahead and minimize it. And then what I want you to do is just kind of go through here and click all the parts. This is actually a really great model for us to be starting with, because it's kind of, this is a really great model.
You're welcome.
What?
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Alright, so first things first, let's say we're happy with the scale of this thing. We've scaled it up, okay. Let's say we're pretty happy with this. Alright, let's leave it as is. I'm trying to think if I want to like parent the objects to each other, or if I want to just throw it all under a group and mess with it that way. I don't know what I want to do with this, to be honest with you. Let's leave things separate for now. Something tells me I don't want to do that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so just go ahead and drag a box over the entire cannon, and let's go to Edit, Delete by Type, History. Edit, Delete by Type, History. And what that's going to do is it's going to blow away any history on this thing from like when the modeler made it, okay? Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to freeze transformations on all of these things. So go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. And what that's going to do is it's going to freeze all the XYZ, translate XYZ, rotate XYZ, and scale values on any of these objects, okay? So it's basically like this object was modeled in this position, and it's just, the object was created in this position, if that makes sense. Alright, so the next thing, let's go ahead and, I really kind of want to put these objects in a group because I feel like if they're just floating out here, that just doesn't make any sense. So go ahead and just select all the objects and then do a Control G. Control G. And if you group all the objects, if you open the hypergraph hierarchy, it should look like this. Okay? And that is called Group 1, but we want to change the name of that to Canon Group. Okay? We actually want to give that a... So you can open up the hypergraph hierarchy and select the group, and then over on the right-hand side, you can rename that to Canon Group. Yep. I like to use all one words and then separate the words with capital letters. Okay. And if I really wanted to be a stickler, I would go through here and just like rename all the parts to things that make sense, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because it's not like that big of a deal for us. Everybody with me so far? Alright, awesome. You guys are being awesome today. Okay, so we've got the Canon. So when you're in your view like this, you're clicking around on objects. In order to get to the group, you just click any object and then tap up arrow on your keyboard, and it will select the group. So you can, of course, move, rotate, scale, groups, right? So this would be the way that we would scale this thing if we wanted to make it bigger, but let's not worry about it. It's fine. All right. All right, so we're pretty happy with this. Let's go ahead and start throwing some bones in here. I'm going to go ahead and skin this bad boy. So first things first, we're going to be in the rigging tab, okay, and then on the left, in the upper left-hand corner, we want to select the drop down from modeling to rigging. Okay, we're going to be in Maya's rigging tools and rigging mode. If you look where my mouse is in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that. And when you click on the rigging tab, I want you to double-click the Create Joints tool. Double-click the Create Joints tool. And you're going to get the joint settings, okay? And these joint settings, what we're going to do is there's a checkbox at the top that says variable bone radius settings. Uncheck that, and then close out those settings. This variable bone radius settings, what this does is, for whatever reason, Maya decides that it wants to make joints different sizes as you create them, and it just looks really ugly, and I don't know why it does that. So I don't know why they default to that. This is ridiculous. So you can just close that off, and then you can click your joint tool once, and it's going to create a little crosshairs. And the first thing we are going to do is to create a joint at the center of the grid. Okay, so zoom on into the center of the grid, and I want you to hold X on your keyboard and then click to create a joint, and it will snap to the center of the grid, and then you tap Enter on your keyboard to create that joint. And we're going to name that joint Root, R-O-O-T. Okay, so again, you click on your joint tool here, move on over to the center of the grid, hold X on your keyboard, and then click, and it'll snap a joint to the grid. Then you tap Enter on your keyboard to create it, and you will create yourself a joint. Okay, then we want to rename that like we renamed the group from Joint 1 to Root. And that joint is a little big for me visually. If you like it, keep it. But I'm going to change the size of that. So I'm going to go to Display, Animation, Joint Size. Display, Animation, Joint Size. And I'm probably going to make it about half the size that it is right now. So Display, Animation, Joint Size. Instead of 1, we'll type in 0.5, Enter. And that looks pretty good. I might even make it 0.25 to be honest. It doesn't really matter. It's all a visual thing. It's just, it's not gonna like make a difference one way or another, but just for me, like I like to have the joints, you know, somewhat proportional to the. All right. Next thing we want to do is, let's see. Man, they really do not make this thing easy. Okay, next thing we want to do is we are going to make this a joint for the axle of this thing, which is this this big wooden block in the center. Or is it? Hold on. Oh, I guess the wheels roll, not that thing. So we're gonna need to. Yeah, the wheels roll. Okay. Alright, so if you tap 4, 5, and 6 on your keyboard, 4 is wireframe mode. We're going to be in and out of wireframe mode to do stuff. And then there's 5 and 6. 5 is smooth shaded mode. And then 6 is textured mode, but we don't have any textures, so. Okay, so go ahead and click one of the wagon wheels. Just select one of the wagon wheels here. I don't know why I called that a wagon wheel, but I guess it is. And you'll see that the pivot point for that wheel is at the center of the grid. If you tap W on your keyboard to move it, you'll see that that's at the center of the grid. We want to center that pivot point. So go to Modify Center Pivot. Modify Center Pivot. And that's going to put the pivot point for that wheel at the center of the wheel. Okay, the exact center of the wheel. And then I want you to hit Control A on your keyboard. Control A with that wagon wheel selected. Okay, so select the wagon wheel and hit Control A. And what we're going to do is up in the upper right is the this expanded attribute editor, and I want you to click on the far left tab, and under there there's some drop down called pivots, and there should be one that's called display rotate pivot. I want you to turn that on, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a little thing in 3D space that we can snap stuff to. That's going to be the exact pivot point of this object. So again, the way you do that is you select the wheel, hit Control A, and in the channel box up here, the attribute editor up here, there's a tab, far left, then there's pivots, and you're going to check on display rotate pivot. And when you turn that on, if you tap, let me see something, hold on. You can also do, if you go to shading, you can turn on X-ray. That's also kind of cool. As you can see, my Canon is X-ray. And then also do X-ray joints, and that allows you to see the joints through the X-ray. So you go to shading, and you see where my mouse is here, shading, X-ray joints. And if you turn on X-ray and X-ray joints, you can see in the center of that wagon wheel, you'll see that little pivot point, that rotate pivot point. Kind of looks like, you guys all see it? Yep. So what you're going to do is I want you to select that joint and duplicate it. You can go to Edit, Duplicate, and then tap W to move, and then if you hold V on your keyboard, you can snap this new joint to that rotate pivot. Also, you can tap 4 on your keyboard and go into wireframe mode. Maybe easier to snap it in wireframe mode. So again, we duplicated that joint, the root joint, and then you tap move on your keyboard, which is W, and if you hold V while you move it, you can snap it to that pivot point. Okay, very important. Alright, and that's a really good place for us to keep that, that one. I want you to do the same thing for the other wheel. Same thing for the other wheel. So that one, again, what we're going to do is you're going to click the wheel, Control A, and turn on the display rotate pivot. And then you're going to duplicate the root, and then you're going to V snap it to that pivot point. Oh, you'll have to center the pivot on the wheel. So select the wheel and then go to Modify Center Pivot so that the pivot points, the pivot point is in the center. So we should have 3 joints so far. Is there anybody that's not with me so far? I'm moving kind of quick. Okay.
How do you get the duplicated joint onto the other one?
How do you duplicate?
Control D.
And then how do you snap it to the other joint?
If you are selecting a joint and you tap W, it'll put it into move mode, and you can hold V on your keyboard and it will snap to stuff. You want to snap it to those pivot points. I'm gonna give him the file.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'm gonna just give you a file. I'm gonna catch somebody up here that just walked in, you guys. So make sure you guys are exactly where I'm at. Okay. Go ahead and save your scenes. File save scene as. Just put it anywhere. Call it Canon. Anybody need any other help before we move forward here? Paul, are you ahead?
No.
Holly, you ahead? So look up at the projector. So see these things? Did you create any of those? Right. So do you have ones in the wheel like this or no? Did you put those there? Okay. Is that it? Okay. So what I want you to do is click the wheel and then go to Modify Center Pivot. Okay. Now select the wheel again and hit Control A. We'll hit it one more time. Now see where my mouse is? Click that tab and there should be something called pivots. Turn on the display rotate pivot. Okay. Now in the center of the wheel, it's going to create a little dot. See that little dot? It may be better for you to go into X-ray. Tap 5 on your keyboard. And see that little dot? See that little dot right there? I can't hear you. I don't know if what you're doing. Anyway, so you're going to select this joint in the center here, and you're going to duplicate it. Just go to Edit, Duplicate. Edit, Duplicate. Yep. Now hold V on your keyboard, and you're going to move that, and as you move it, it's going to snap to stuff. You want to snap it to the center point. Snap it to that point. See that? And you'll have to like zoom in and rotate a little bit more, and then you can snap it a little bit better. You want to snap that joint to that point. You just want to snap one of them to that point. Okay? And you want to do that same stuff for the other wagon wheel. All right. All right, so we got our wheels in place. That's cool. We got our main thing in place here. That cannon is gonna need the capability to tilt. So we want to put a joint. If you look at where the cannon, it has like some metal that goes through some, I guess I'll just call them clamps here at the top. And that's like a metal piece. Let's just assume that runs through it like an axle. We want to throw a joint in the center of that axle so we can like rotate the cannon up and down so we could shoot in the air, shoot at the ground, shoot somebody straight in front of us. Okay, so I want you to duplicate that root joint one more time. So select that root joint, duplicate it, Control D, and I want you to move the duplicate up and keep it in the center, and I just want you to move it as close to the center of that axle as you can. One of the things that's going to help you is if you tap the space bar and go into like a side view and then tap 4 on your keyboard, and you can like kind of see the center of that axle there, and you just kind of place it in the center of that axle. So you can tap space bar on your keyboard and you can go into different views like front, side, and perspective. Okay. Side is where you want to be. And you want to place that joint in the center there. And I'm about to teach you the most important lesson of rigging that you'll ever learn in your entire lives, okay? And this lesson can be applied to many other things in life. One of my favorite sayings is, there is good and there is good enough, okay? We could get this thing perfectly somehow in the center of that friggin' axle, and we'd be really, really happy, and that's fine. But the reality is that nothing in life is perfect, and definitely not this cannon. So just eyeball it. Is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and let's go ahead and name that joint. Shoot, I don't even know. What is this thing called? Barrel, I guess. Just name that joint barrel. I don't even know how to spell that. Like a gun barrel. B-A-R-R-E-L. Barrel.
Chris, what if you accidentally change one of your views on your...
If you accidentally change your view like Paul, you can go to panels in any view, and then go to panel. I'm sorry. You can go to panels, and you can change it from a perspective, or you can go to orthographic, which is front, side, top. So perspective is the 3D view, and orthographic is front, side, or top. Guys, while we're into renaming here, go ahead and rename your wheel joints as well. You want to just do like L wheel and R wheel. Okay, so L for left, L wheel, and R for right, R wheel. Alright, so we got 4 joints in here so far. We got a root, a barrel, L wheel, and R wheel. We're doing really good. I'm proud of you guys. Proud of everyone but Paul. Just kidding. Alright, there is like a little knob here at the back of this thing. I don't know what the heck that's for. Oh, I guess what it does is it raises up the cannon. Oh god, okay. We're gonna need to put a joint in there. That thing's gonna have to be spinning. So go ahead and do something similar to what you did. Just duplicate the root joint, and I guess call it knob. 'Cause that's the only knob in this thing. Well, I mean, I guess this back thing could be considered a knob. And you want to place that in the center of the knob. You can do the same thing that we did with the wheel, where you turn on the rotate pivot for that knob, and then you snap the new knob joint to that rotate pivot. Okay? I'll go over that. All you do is you select the knob, go to Modify Center Pivot. Then with the knob selected, hit Control A, and you'll see that pivot, display, rotate, pivot checkbox again. Turn that on, and that's gonna allow you to see the pivot point in the center of that knob, and then you can V-snap your new joint to the pivot point in that knob. What is that called? Handle. No. Knob. Yeah, showing those pivots are really, really useful. So all we're doing is creating joints and just moving them to the centers of different objects in this cannon. And eventually what we're going to do is we're going to parent these joints together, and then we're going to skin the cannon. We're going to skin the objects to the cannon. All right. All right, so that knob is going to need to spin independently, and then there is this corkscrew thingy. That's going to need to spin also. I wonder, are those two things attached? You think? So what we're trying to figure out here is, does this knob stay put and it spins, and then this corkscrew thingy moves up and down? Is that what happens there?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, if that's the case, then that thing needs its own joint. Okay? So one of the best things I think we should do is, again, modify center pivot on that thing and give it its own joint and just call it screw. You know, modify center pivot and then turn on the display rotate pivot for that. Duplicate another joint, call it screw, and then V-snap it to the that rotate pivot. And when you do it, it's actually a little bit below the one from the handle, so it looks like this. So we've literally like repeated the same process like 1, 2, 3, 4-ish times. We're literally doing the same process over and over again. We're duplicating joints, centering pivots on objects, and snapping the joints to the pivot points on these objects. That's it. That's all we're doing. Okay? And we're trying to deconstruct this cannon and figure out exactly how this thing works. It's actually kind of cool. Is there any other moving parts you guys see on this cannon? Anybody seeing anything else I'm missing?
I was going to ask, because on the wheels, the outer portion, the outer ring, is a different piece to the wheel. So that just be attached to itself?
Yeah, so what we'll do is when we go ahead and skin the wheel to that joint, we'll go ahead and skin the outer part to that joint as well too. So the joint's going to control the objects, if that makes sense. I honestly don't see any other moving parts in this thing, which is a good thing. So let's go ahead and start parenting some of these things together. Okay? So I know that the wagon wheels are going to be parented to the root. So go ahead and parent those to the root. What you do to do that is select one of the wagon wheel joint, shift select the root, and tap P for parent on your keyboard. P for parent on your keyboard. Okay? I'll go over that one more time. So you're going to select one of the wheel joints, shift select the root joint, then tap P on your keyboard. I want you to parent both of those wheel joints to the root. You can parent multiple joints at the same time by selecting multiple joints and then selecting the joint you want them to parent to and then tap P. Remember, Control Z is your friend. Control Z is undo. If you move something or parent something wrong or do whatever, just tap Control Z. Or did somebody tell me that just Z does it now? Or just Z? But I guess they kept Control Z in there for people who have been doing this forever. Okay. Now that barrel joint, that also gets parented to the root. So you want to parent that one to the root also. And honestly, the little spinny thing, the knob, that one also gets parented to the root. And then I'm thinking we can parent the screw to the knob. Parent the screw to the knob. So when we rotate the screw, when we rotate the knob, it's going to rotate the screw at the same rate. But then we can move up and down the screw as we like. Okay? And we'll do some cool stuff with that, with what I call set-driven key.
So sorry, which one are we pairing to which?
So if you look up here, it'll be pretty obvious.
Yes, Control B.
Now to unparent stuff, you can just hit undo, or you can select any joint and tap Shift P, and that will unparent a joint from another one. Okay? So far, basically everything is parented to the root except for the screw, which is parented to the knob. Okay? Everything is parented to the root except for the screw, which is parented to the knob. We waiting on anybody? It's okay. Just we want to make sure you guys are all caught up because I don't want to move forward here. Can you help him?
I'm, what? I'm also lost.
What's up?
It's not really connect. I see how yours is connected.
Huh?
When I did the initiative, connected out of control.
No. Not Control P. Just P.
Just me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that's the wrong way. So if you look at how my joints are parented, you'll see that like the direction that they're parented, there's like a big piece and then it goes to a small. That means the little end is parented to the bigger end. You can parent in different directions. So you want to make sure that they're pointing at the same. The way that you can make sure that this works is if you click the main root joint and you try and move it, it's going to move everything like this. If you're parented the opposite direction, it's going to not move everything. Okay, so that's real important. Just as a side note, I'm pretty excited about this weekend. I'm going to get a haircut and catch up on sleep and stuff. My God, this week has killed me. They wanted us to do spring schedule this week, so I've had to schedule out all the classes and stuff. It's insane.
Borderlands 3 came out last night.
I'm surprised you guys are here. You're not Borderland. So this is the most epic Borderlands ever. I don't know. I know too many people at Gearbox. So like, it's kind of like when you're a movie director and you watch movies, you kind of pick them apart. I'm like the same way. I like play their games. I'm like, I know who made that. You know. All right, you caught up? All right. All right, we got this thing right where we want it. I'm pretty happy with things. Let's go ahead and start skinning. Okay? First things first, save the scene. And I'm going to teach you a trick about saving in iterations. This time do save scene as, and we've saved it before as canon.mb. This time we're going to save it as just canon1. Okay? And I'm sure you guys have all saved in iterations before. Some of you guys have, some of you guys haven't. What is the purpose of saving in iterations?
If something happens to the current iteration, you can go back to a previous version.
Bingo. You just won $1 million. Yeah, that is super helpful. I mean, we all like know about it and stuff, and you know, it's kind of like one of those things that when you never need it until you do. You know what I mean? And when you lose, I'm sure everybody in here's lost files before. Let me see some hands if we've lost a project file. Oh my God, it's basically everyone in this room. I've done it a bunch of times. Nobody's perfect. Every time it happens, it's the worst thing ever. So anyway, saving iterations, it will save you some time at some point. All right, we have saved our scene. Now what we need to do is skin this thing. So let's go ahead and open up the... Actually, no, we'll just leave it open. Go ahead and move the cannon over to the right here. And I want you to go to Show. And over here on Show, you'll see all the different options of things that are in the scene. Let's go ahead and pop that out. There's a tab at the very top when you do Show, and you click that, and it's going to pop it out as its own window. Okay, we're going to be in and out of here, so we're just going to keep that off to the side. I want you to turn off joints, so just check the joints checkbox. And then I want you to drag select all the objects in the cannon. Okay, go ahead and drag select all the objects in the cannon. Alright, now what we're going to do is turn joints back on, and I want you to hold shift and select the root. Hold shift and select the root. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to skin this, so we're telling Maya, hey, these objects to this joint, okay? So then up at the top you see something that says skin, and there's an option box to the far right of bind skin. I want you to click the option box. Okay, so again, go up to the top, it'll say skin. If it doesn't say skin, you need to select the drop down in the far upper left that says modeling, change that to rigging. You're going to skin, bind skin option box. Yes. Yeah, so if you don't, in the upper left hand side there's a drop down. You change that from modeling to rigging, and then you will have the skin option. Okay, and if you guys just look up at my thing here, I'm going to turn off a couple options. Actually, I'm just going to turn off one option, removed unused influences. Remove unused influences, and then go ahead and click apply to apply your skin. Okay, so again, skin, bind skin option box, and I'm going to turn off remove unused influences and click apply. The reason why I like to use apply is because when you click apply, it does what it's supposed to do, but leaves the options open. And so if there was like a mistake or something, you could just undo and then retweak your options and then apply again. If you just hit bind skin, it's going to close the entire box and you'd have to go find the menu again. But anyway, since we all did that correctly, which I hope we did, just go ahead and click close and close out of that. Alright, and then what I want you to do is start grabbing these joints and start moving them around and seeing what effect it has on the cannon. Okay, as you can see, when you move some joints around, what's happening here, you guys? It's basically like moving the cannon like the wrong way, right? Cannon's not supposed to move like that. So what we need to do
is start telling Maya what objects to move and when based on those bones. So let's do something pretty handy. What I want to do first is I'm going to take all these objects, since a lot of them are going to be attached to the root. I'm going to flood all these objects to start to the root. That's going to be real simple for us. So I want you to turn off joints again in your show. Okay, just uncheck joints. Drag a box over all the objects again. Turn off joints and drag a box over all the objects again. And then we need to, there's an option here under the rigging tab, and it's the paint skin weights tool. And there's no like little text box that pops up that says what it is, so you're just going to look up where my mouse is to see where that is. It's like a little paintbrush with kind of a grid kind of thing. You just click that. Actually, double click that, sorry. And it's going to open up the Paint Skin Weights tool settings. Okay? It's going to open up the Paint Skin Weights tool settings. You want to double click it. Alright, everybody should be here. If you're not here, let me know. Alright, so the Paint Skin Weights tool setting is pretty cool. Up at the top you can click through all of the, these are joints, remember, because we named them. You'll see all the names that you created. And as you click through those, it's going to highlight different areas of the cannon and show you which areas the joints are applied to and which areas they're not. And it's going to show you this by black and white. And what white means is that it has influence, the joint has influence over that area. And what black means is that it doesn't have influence over the area. So if it's black, it's not going to move it. If it's white, it's going to move it. Make sense? All right. So we're going to keep this really, really simple. We're going to keep this really, really simple. Go ahead and click on the root. And then down at the bottom, there's a button called Flood. Just click Flood. Click the root, and then down at the bottom, click Flood. And what that's going to do is it's going to make all of the objects influence flooded to the root. Okay? Now, you can go ahead and close out of the Paint Skin Weights tool and click your arrow key, which is in the upper left hand. Okay? And now, what we want to do is turn our joints back on. And now we want to start, we're going to flood the other components of this cannon the same way to the joints. So let's start with the barrel. So click the barrel, make sure that's highlighted green. Double click your Paint Skin Weights tool again. This time, instead of choosing root, we're going to choose barrel, then click flood. Okay? And we're going to go through, and I want you to do that same process for all of the other objects. Okay? I'll go through that again. So I'm going to close my Paint Skin Weights tool, click my arrow tool. I'm going to do the handle this time, or knob, whatever we call it. So I'm going to click the knob, double click my Paint Skin Weights tool, click knob joint, then I'm going to click flood. And now my knob is flooded to that joint. Okay? You want to do the same thing for the corkscrew. Click the corkscrew thing, double click my Paint Skin Weights tool, click on screw, flood. Okay, for the wagon wheels, as we talked about earlier, they have like an actual tire on them that's separate from the wheel. So what you're going to do is you're just going to shift select both of those, double click your paint skin weights tool, make sure you have the right joint selected, and flood. So I'll go over that one more time for the other wagon wheel. The wagon wheels have actual tires on them that are separate from the wheel. Okay, if you look up here, you can see the tire. Okay, I'm going to select the tire. I'm going to shift select the wheel. Then double click my paint skin weights tool to do them both. Make sure I have the right joint selected. As you select back and forth the joints in the paint skin weights tool, you'll see that they turn blue. So you can see which joint you are messing with. And then I'm just going to click flood to make sure that that gets flooded. So I'm flooding all of the objects independently to their independent joints. Again, and so when you're done with that, you can move the root around and it will move everything. You can also select the joints independently and move those around, and they should move all of the right objects. You always want to test out your joints and make sure that they're moving the right things. All right, so we're going to take a couple minute break here and make sure everybody gets caught up. Do you need to get my file?
Yes.
Okay, give me your drive.
Thank you.
So you guys, if you can help each other, make sure everybody gets caught up. I know I moved kind of quick, but since I'm doing the same process over and over again, I figure we can, get it figured out.
When I selected that, nothing popped up in mine. So is rigging the same thing as animating, or is it?
No,
You can get a thing
it's not the same thing. All right, this file's called Canon 1.
These two are paired together. This one looks like it might be two that have been formed.
I'll be right back.
How did we get? Is this going to be paired up too? Yeah, I think those are. Two in there? What's that idea? That was the snap to it.
point in there that you can stab to?
Yeah, I put it in there. Thought. Isn't that it right there?
Okay, cool. So you have everything pointing to the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Should be. So now you need to do the weighted paint thing. The skin, or did you skin it and all that?
Well, these ones aren't now. You know what I'm saying? Because I just attached them, right?
The weighted part? What? The skin? Okay.
Let's say I haven't done any of that. How do I do that?
Okay, so
Because then we're like selecting on something.
you want to hit joints on the list. So hide joints, select everything. Okay, and now go to skin. What should you do? And then
What's up?
okay, hit black. Okay, you should be good. So hit.
So there's an error. Okay.
Oh my gosh, is Paul caught up yet?
No, but
Oh, Paul.
He's trying here.
Another thing. Okay, so now the joints on the list. And now you need to do the base part. So you can do
So I accidentally made a second root bone. Is there a way I can merge it with the original?
Merge?
okay, and
Yeah,
now
like
you
just
select
combine the original root and the second root.
No.
everything.
Just where, so it looks like this or something.
Kinda, yeah. Well, one of the wheels is attached to it, so.
Just don't worry about it.
Okay.
Actually, do you have a little flash drive?
No, I
You still have that file? Here, just take this file. If anybody needs the file of where I'm at, just grab it off this. He's got a USB drive.
I messed up this, that's what your, yeah, I didn't, I thought I connected them, but I couldn't.
Paul, I think you confused Holly.
I'm not sure. Exactly sure you do?
Yeah, it's just key, it's clicking something and then shifting and then.
Well, no. How do you do the weighted?
Canon 1.
Now how you went through and like clicked all the boxes like with the joints that showed up. Oh.
Like do all the splitting.
Yep. Refresh. Alright, Chris.
Paul,
I'm not getting any.
he's got a USB drive with the file on it. Just grab that from him and just open it up. Anybody else that needs it, this dude in
I
the
just
front.
have no idea why.
What, I wouldn't sweat it right now. Just I'm recording this, so
Okay.
you just go back and like look
No
at it.
problem.
Anybody got any cool plans this weekend?
Word.
There's this at the, I forget, some theater, community theater, they're showing, just these clips from educational VHS tapes and workout VHS tapes, just really wonky clips. It's gonna be really good. I forget what it's called though.
Wow.
Well, I have to look at the.
Sounds funny.
footage festival at the Texas Theater.
Wow.
That's this Saturday.
Found footage, huh?
Yeah.
Well, all right then. He needs it. It's called Canon 1. So you guys that weren't able to keep up, definitely, when I put this video up, just go back and look at it and try and figure out what steps you missed or what concepts you couldn't grasp, because we are going to be doing a lot of this kind of stuff.
Is this?
Obi, do you need the file? Just-
I already have it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on. Okay, so just to backtrack just a hair, if you click on any of your objects and you move them around, the joints, and you move them around, it's going to move all of the individual objects that those are attached to. So in order to test this thing out, I can literally drag these out like this, and it should do exactly what I want it to do. Okay, I can see that all these are clearly doing what I need them to do. Okay. All right. So we got this kind of right where we want it. Let's add some controls. Okay. So over on the Curves Surface tab, I want you to create a, well, first and foremost, let's save this. File, save scene as. We'll say this is Canon 2. We're all done with our weighting. Okay. And what I want you to do is create a circle curve. So there's a circle one on the far left under the Curves tab. Click that, and it's going to create a circle at the bottom of the grid. And what you want to go ahead and do is click R on your keyboard so it scales it. And I want you to scale it so it kind of encompasses the wheels of the cannon as well, kind of like this. Okay, so you click the Curves tab, and you click the one curved circle. It's going to create like a little hula hoop looking thing, and select it and tap R on your keyboard, and from the center scale it up so it encompasses the wheels of the cannon. Okay. Now I want you to duplicate that circle, Control D, move that up, and I want you to V-snap it to the barrel joint. So you can V-snap to joints by holding V while you move, which is the W key, and I want you to V-snap that to the barrel. You know what? Actually, we're not going to do that. Delete that. We're going to do that a totally different way. We're going to do some crazy stuff that's going to scare you, but that's okay. We do need one of these for the wheels. So go ahead and duplicate another hula hoop down here. And I want you to V-snap that to one of the wheel joints. Any of the wheel joints. It doesn't matter which one. And then go ahead and rotate that wheel, rotate that circle that you just duplicated 90 degrees in X. So you can select it, and over in the channel box in the upper right there's rotate X. You can type 90 and it will do it perfectly at 90 degrees. Alright, it will do it perfectly at 90 degrees. Okay. Alright, so yeah, so I want you to scale that down so it's kind of like the outside of the wheel. Or actually, you know what? Don't scale it towards the outside of the wheel. Scale it till it's about half the size of the wheel. About half the size of the wheel. Like this. And you can, in your scale X, you can just do 1.25 in all three in the channel box, 1.25. Or just eyeball it, it doesn't matter. And then duplicate that one, and then V-snap it to the other wheel. So to do that, you select it, Control D, then tap W to move. I'm going to move it on over, and you're going to hold V to V-snap it to the other joint. And as you V-snap these to joints, you'll see that they kind of auto-snap to the center. Okay? This is what we got so far. Okay. And just to make things easy, well, actually I'm not going to make things easy. Let's not do that. Sorry. We will. What's up?
You don't have to hit it.
We will need another one of these hula hoops for the knob. So go ahead and duplicate another hula hoop, V-snap it to the center of the knob, and just make it a little bit bigger than the knob. Alright, you can grab the root, Control D, and now you can move that one and V-snap it to the knob joint. want to scale that one down and make it just a little bit bigger than the knob. 0.75 is fine for that one in scale. And for the root, 3 is fine in scale. All right. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this amount of controls for this thing. I don't think we're going to need anything else. So what I want you to do is in your thingy over here, go ahead and turn off polygons. So you're just looking at joints and controls. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach these joints to these controls. Okay? But the first thing that we're going to do is I want you to shift select all of the control circles. So hold shift and select all of the control circles. Then we are going to delete history and freeze transformations. Something that you're going to hear me say a lot. Those two steps. So edit, delete by type history. Edit, delete by type history. Modify, freeze transformations. Modify, freeze transformations. Okay? It's funny when people walk by this room, they're always like mesmerized by what we're doing in here. It looks like we're in a fishbowl or something. All right, so let's start with parenting some of these things together. So just like we parented the joints to the root, we need to parent the satellite controls to the root control. Okay, so you can select, for example, one of the wheels, then shift select the root circle, then hit P, and it will do the same thing. You can see when you move around the root circle, it will move the wheel now, wheel circle. I want you to parent the other wheel circle to it, and then parent the knob to it as well, so that when I move the big circle, it moves all the other little circles. Okay? And again, you can select all three of those circles and parent them at the same time with one P if you want. Just P, that's it. All right, so now we have parented the little circles to the bigger circle. We are going to constrain the joints to their specific controls. Okay, what constraining is it's very similar to parent, but constraining is like glue, kind of. Like it like glues stuff together, but it doesn't actually like put it in its hierarchy. So for example, my hand, my finger bones are parented to my hand bone, right? They're actually like a part of it. But like if you take like a piece of glue and glue like two pieces of paper together, they're just like attached, right? So it just sort of attaches it. It doesn't like make it part of its thing, if that makes sense. The constrain menu is constrain. So let's go ahead and pop that out, just like we popped out the other menu. I'm just going to constrain up at the top, just pop that out. And let's do one at a time here. So first and foremost, let's do the root. So I want you to select the root control, then shift select the root joint. Then we're going to use parent constraints. So open the option box for parent constraint. And really we just need to go ahead and just click apply. And what that's going to do is if you move around the root control now, it'll move around the whole thing. So now the control drives the bones. Okay?
Sorry, can you go over that one more time?
Yes.
How you attach them?
I'm going to do it with another joint, okay? So we'll do it with the one of the wagon wheels. So select the wagon wheel control. If you have a move thingy up, you want to get that out of the way, just tap T on your keyboard. T will remove any movement dongles that are in your way. And then you can hold shift and select the joint. Then go ahead and click apply in your parent constraint options. And then when you grab that control and move it, it's going to move the joint. So we want controls driving joints. And then we want joints driving objects. Alright, let's do the other wagon wheel here. Select the wagon wheel control. I've got this movement thing in the way. I'll tap T to get it out of the way. Hold shift. Select the joint for the wagon wheel, then click apply in our parent constrain options. Now when I just select that wagon wheel control and move it, it's going to move the wagon wheel joint. Alright, go ahead and do the same process for the knob. Select the knob control, shift select the knob joint, and apply in our parent constrain options. So now all controls should drive all joints. Pretty simple. All right, we're done with our our constraints here, so we can close out of that. We're done with our constrain options. We can close out of that. All right, now comes the hard part. Go ahead and save your scene. File, save scene as. This really isn't that hard. I'm just messing with you guys. Save it as Canon 3. So we're going to do something to where when I rotate this knob control, it's going to not only raise the screw, but it's also going to raise the cannon barrel. Raise and lower the cannon barrel. Okay? And I really don't know how exactly I'm going to do that, so I'm going to kind of figure it out as I teach you guys, which is funny but true. So in the upper left-hand corner, go ahead and select the rigging drop down and change that to animation. Okay, in the upper left-hand corner, change the rigging drop down to animation. And under key is something called set driven key. We want to click the little arrow to the right, and then there's an option box for what's called set. Go ahead and click the option box for set. And this thing's going to pop up. Okay, again, upper left-hand corner, change it from rigging to animation. Then there is a menu option at the top called key. Click that, scroll down to where it says set driven key. Move all the way over to the right to where it says to the right of set. There's a little option box. Click that, and it's going to open up set driven key here. Alright, and basically when you look at this menu here, you have drivers and driven, okay? And drivers are usually controls, and driven are usually like joints. Okay? So in this case, we're going to load the driver, which is going to be this knob control. So click the knob control, then click load driver. That's called NURBS Control 4. And we are going to connect the rotate Y. So click rotate Y. Rotate Y is the direction when I like spin the knob. Okay. And we are going to, now we need to load what's driven. Okay. Let's drive the screw joint. So select the screw joint and then click load driven. And this is going to drive translate Y, which is up and down movement. So as we rotate the screw, we want it to move the corkscrew up and down. Okay? Alright, so what we're going to do is going to be a little tricky. I want you to move. Oh, we need to do one more thing. Go up to create at the top. Make sure you have your NURBS Circle 4 selected. Go up to create at the top, and we're going to create a, make sure you have the control for the knob selected. Then go to create up at the top, and we're going to create something called a, what is it? I believe it's called an attribute, but I don't see it for some reason. Oh, no, it's under modify. Modify add attribute. Modify add attribute. Alright, and what this is going to do is it's going to create a an attribute on that controller which allows us to set some values to move the cannon up and down. So name that attribute, just call it raise. Just call it raise lower, actually. Raise lower, that'll work. And let's we need to give it a minimum value and a maximum value. Okay, and that's going to be the minimum amount of frames that it takes to rotate the thing up and down. We kind of have to think about in terms of animation here for a second, like what would be like the slowest animation we would do of this thing raising up and down. We want to make sure that we have enough frames there. Let's just make it 30 frames. So minimum is 0, maximum is 30. Okay, and go ahead and click OK. So now when we have that circle selected over on the right hand side, you can see there's something called raise lower. So we've created a custom attribute called raise lower. Okay, and actually I messed up a little bit. That is what we want to load as our driver, not the control itself, but we want to load raise lower. Right, so if you just with the control selected, click load driver again, and when you load the driver again, you'll now see raise lower in the list. Go ahead and select that. Okay. So raise lower is going to drive the translate Y for the screw. Okay. All right, so go ahead, and right now raise lower is set to 0. Go ahead and click key in the lower hand. So that is keyed translate Y of the screw at where it's at for raise lower at 0. Now what I want you to do is set raise lower to 10. Set the value of raise lower to 10. And then what I want you to do is grab that bone for the screw and move it up. Move it up 0.5 in translate Y. Move it up in 0.5 in translate Y. And I'm going ridiculously slow here so that we get this right the first time. Now when you're done with that, go ahead and click key. Now in order to test this, if you set your raise lower back to 0, it should go down. And then you can set it back to 10 and it should go up. Okay? So we're going to do something similar. So now we got that attribute moves the screw up and down. We want the cannon to rotate as well. Okay, so go ahead and click the bone for the cannon. And we're going to load that as driven. You'll see barrel loads in, and we're going to select rotate Z for that one, which is going to be the tilt. Rotate Z. All right, now select your knob control, and that is set. Right now, make sure it's set to 0. Okay. Now go ahead and click key. Now change your raise lower to 10. Now what you're going to do is select the joint on the cannon, click E to rotate, and rotate it up so that it is like kind of tilting down, right? Like rotate it up so it's like kind of tilted down like this, so it kind of matches the height of the screw, if that makes sense. Then you're going to click key again. So then if you click your knob control and set it raise lower back to 0, you'll see that the cannon now moves back to where it's at. And another thing that you can do is if you click, so everybody look up here real quick. If you click the raise lower name, then over in your view, hold your middle mouse button and drag it left and right. It's going to automatically do everything. Okay? And actually, there's one more step here that we needed to do that I totally forgot, which is we need to connect the. We want it totally automatic to where when I spin this thingy, it's going to activate raise lower. So there's one more step. We need to open what's called the connection editor. So we need to connect that spinny thing to raise lower. So you can close out of your set driven key. We don't need that anymore. Go to Windows General Editors Connection Editor. Windows General Editors Connection Editor. And this one's very similar to kind of what we were just doing, but this is like a direct connection. So instead of setting keys, it just directly connects stuff together. So what we're gonna do is we have reload left and reload right, which is kind of like load driver and driven. So on the left, I want you to click your knob control and click reload left. And on the right, load it on the right too, actually. Now on the right, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see raise lower, which you can't click. And if you scroll down a little bit on the right, you'll see rotate. And I want you to, there's a little expander thingy, click that and see where it says rotate Y. Click rotate Y. And then once you click rotate Y, it's going to highlight. Then you'll see you're able to click raise lower. Click that. And that directly connected the rotate Y to raise lower, which is all the way at the bottom on the right. So now I think if you grab that control and you rotate it, it's going to rotate the cannon up and down, which it does. See that? So when I spin the little knobby thing, it rotates the cannon. It drives that raise lower and it drives the cannon up and down. So that's pretty cool. I've actually never done that before. So we have a working cannon here. I know it's not terribly exciting, but basically that kind of gives you an idea of how you can like set up, if you imagine like a transformer, okay? Like a transformer that transforms from a friggin' car into a robot. Imagine how much of this kind of set-driven key and all that sort of stuff is set up for that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do is teach you guys like some basic concepts so you can like grasp some bigger stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? All right. Any questions on this?
Yeah, but I'll wait for the video.
Yes. Okay. I'll come around and take a look. That's all we're going to do for today on this. Go ahead and save your scenes.
Would it be possible, if we work on this again, would it be possible